Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. The Shanghai Cooperation Organisation has rejected India's objection to Pakistan's new political map. During a virtual meeting of the security advisors of the member states, the Indian side raised objections by falsely claiming that the map showed Indian territories as part of Pakistan. Responding, Pakistan's National Security Advisor Dr. Mueed Yusuf said New Delhi has no legal rights to claim the disputed territory of occupied Kashmir as part of India. Pakistan has called for a UN-brokered dialogue involving all parties to the Yemen conflict to end hostilities. In a statement, the Foreign Office said Islamabad supports Saudi Arabia's right to defend itself against any aggression. It urged the warring sides to cease military actions to save thousands of lives in Yemen. US President Donald Trump has threatened Iran over reports it is planning an attack against the US in retaliation for the killing of Qasem Soleimani. Trump said US response to any Iranian attack will be 1,000 times greater in magnitude. The Iranian Foreign Ministry dismissed the report, saying this is part of Washington's disinformation campaign against Tehran. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. We start our news bulletin from Shanghai Cooperation Organisation, which has rejected India's objection to Pakistan's new political map. During a virtual meeting of the security advisors of the member states, the Indian side objected to the map by falsely claiming that the map showed Indian territories as part of Pakistan. Responding, Pakistan said New Delhi has no legal rights to claim the disputed territory of occupied Kashmir as part of India. The map was displayed in the background during the address of Pakistan's security advisor Dr. Mueed Yusuf. He informed the SCO Secretariat that India is violating the UN Security Council resolutions on Kashmir. Earlier, Dr. Yusuf reiterated Pakistan's commitment to peace in Afghanistan through an Afghan-owned reconciliation process. He said Pakistan is committed to working with member states to achieve peace and stability in the region. And for more on this, we have with us Pakistan's National Security Advisor, Dr. Mueed Yusuf. Thank you for your time at Indus News. Dr. Yusuf, today Pakistan wins backing of the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation over its new political map. It is a clear validation of Pakistan's stance that occupied Kashmir is a disputed territory and not an internal affair of India. What's your take on this?
Okay, I think this is not the first time we are hearing that. Virtually every forum, including the UN very recently, where this has been brought up by India or someone else, it's very clear. It's one of the longest standing disputes in the UN. We've made this point very clearly today at the SCO. Quite frankly, India's attitude, behavior, and the walkout made no sense. It was unfortunate. It was not backed by anybody. Everybody else stayed through our speech. And so it's a bit bizarre, but very sad that such an important forum will see such attitude from a member who ultimately has just isolated itself from the members.
So, Dr. Yusuf, this kind of attitude, as exhibited by Indian side at such an important international forum, is the basis of a threat to regional stability and security.
Frankly, this act is a continuation of a larger mindset of a pattern of behavior. Every single neighbor of India has problems with India. You've seen Balakot with us. You've seen China. You've seen Nepal. You've seen Bangladesh. So it's not possible that everybody in the region has gone mad and India is the only sane one. It's the opposite. So this behavior we're seeing, Hindutva ideology, it's expansionist, it's destabilizing. We've been saying this to the world throughout. And today's episode, I think, makes it so obvious that it's really become petty and childish. And I'm sorry to say this, it doesn't give me any joy, even though I sit here in an important office looking at an adversity. We stand for peace. We stand for moving forward. We stand for cooperation. But the prerequisites are clear, and we've made it absolutely clear to everybody on what is needed. 5th August has to be reversed, the illegal actions, and we're open to talking. But short of that, this is the attitude that this so-called democracy shows.
Dr. Yusuf, you highlighted the Afghan issue in your speech at the SCO forum today. So do you think India is creating impediments to the ongoing peace process?
Let me just say this. I think the progress in the Afghan peace process, we've tried very hard. The world has given us credit and has recognized our effort. But this progress and the future peace process, unfortunately, is going to move forward despite India, not because of India. Let me just put it that way.
Dr. Yusuf, veteran Afghan politician Gulbuddin Hikmatyar in clearer of terms pointed towards India. And then when we talk about US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad, he had alluded to the spoilers of the Afghan peace process. So they were referring to India, particularly when we talk about US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad.
I don't know whether they point or not and where they point. I can just tell you categorically that India was opposed to talks. India talked about a military solution. India thought that the US will stay there forever and they will just remain undercover because of that. India did not want the process to move forward. It wanted more chaos, and things have moved in a much, much better direction, thankfully. So I don't know who they're pointing to, but I can tell you it's very clear to everybody. It's been public. India didn't want this to move in this direction, whatever they may say.
Dr. Mueed Yusuf, Pakistan's National Security Advisor, thanks for talking to Indus News. Really appreciate that. Now, moving on, Islamabad has strongly rejected the unwarranted references to Pakistan in a joint US-India statement. Foreign Office spokesman Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said Islamabad's serious concerns regarding the statement have been conveyed to the US. In a statement, Chaudhry said the international community is well aware that Pakistan is a country most affected by Indian-supported cross-border terrorism. He said the partner countries should refrain from endorsing positions that are one-sided and divorced from the ground realities. Chaudhry said peace and stability in South Asia is threatened by the irresponsible policies and the actions of the RSS-BJP regime in India. He said the international community must urge India to reverse its course and stop playing a role detrimental to regional peace and stability. The US President Donald Trump has threatened Iran over reports that it is planning an attack against the US in retaliation for the killing of Qasem Soleimani. President Trump said the US response to any Iranian attack will be 1,000 times greater in magnitude. He tweeted the statement after reports surfaced that Iranian government was planning assassination of US Ambassador to South Africa, Lana Marks. In an interview, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Washington will take the report very seriously. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh has dismissed the claims as baseless. He said the blame is part of Trump administration's disinformation campaign against Iran. Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency has reached an agreement with Tehran over the implementation of safeguards in Iran's nuclear plants. IAEA's Director General Rafael Grossi says the agreement will help develop cooperation and build mutual confidence between the UN body and Tehran. Director General Rafael Grossi said IAEA had access to one of the two sites that was demanded by the international inspectors. But Grossi said he has discussed access to the second site in his recent meeting with Iran's President Hassan Rouhani. He said IAEA inspectors will visit Tehran's second nuclear site later this month. Iran and IAEA released a joint statement last month to emphasize the facilitation of the implementation of the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement. The Palestinians are observing a Black Day to protest the signing ceremony of the UAE and Bahrain's peace deals with Israel today. Palestine's Prime Minister Mohammed Shatai has called it the darkest chapter in the history of the Arab world and surrender of the Arab League. Shatai said the accord will be another day to add to the calendar of Palestine's misery. He urged the other Arab states not to take part in the celebrations. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the top diplomats from the UAE and Bahrain are set to sign the deals today in Washington, D.C. Pakistan has called for a UN-brokered dialogue involving all the parties to the Yemen conflict to end hostilities. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said Islamabad supports Saudi Arabia's right to defend itself against any aggression. Pakistan hailed the unilateral ceasefire declared by the coalition forces in Yemen earlier this year, but regretted that the step was not reciprocated by Houthis. The Foreign Office warned that the military conflict will result in a serious humanitarian catastrophe and reiterated the need to resolve the conflict through dialogue. It said Pakistan backs the steps taken by the Saudi coalition to restore order in Yemen. It urged the warring sides to cease military actions to save thousands of lives in Yemen. A U.S. court has ruled to end the so-called temporary protected status for over 300,000 undocumented immigrants from 4 countries. In a 2-1 ruling, the court allowed the authorities to expel thousands of migrants from Sudan, Nicaragua, Haiti, and El Salvador. It reversed a lower court decision to block the U.S. President Donald Trump's move to phase out the protections. The ruling means the immigrants will have to find another way to legally remain in the U.S. or depart after a wind-down period at least until early March. Plaintiff's lawyer called the decision deeply flawed, hinting at an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. The temporary protections allows foreigners suffering from disasters or conflicts to remain in the U.S. and apply for work permits. Venezuela has charged the alleged U.S. spy with terrorism and weapons trafficking. In a statement, Chief Prosecutor Tariq Saab said Matthew John Heath was plotting attacks against Venezuela's oil industry and electricity system. Saab said the American citizen illegally entered Venezuela from Colombia. Without providing details, Saab said Heath was carrying a coin linking him to the Central Intelligence Agency. The prosecutor said authorities seized equipment including a grenade launcher, plastic explosives, and a bag of US dollars.
The US citizen did not have a passport that showed a formal entry to the country. That is, he entered illegally. He just had a photocopy of the passport hidden in his shoe. The US citizen had a satellite phone that he refused to unlock. The US citizen was found with photographic images of the oil facilities.
The U.S. authorities are yet to comment on the case. Now moving on, Peru's government has filed a lawsuit to block impeachment proceedings against President Martin Vizcarra. Justice Ministry lawyer Luis Huertas says the government wants the Constitutional Court to temporarily suspend the process. Huertas said the move is more of a precaution until the Constitutional Court rules on the matter. Meanwhile, in a televised message, Vizcarra renewed his vow not to resign.
I must tell Peruvians that what is happening here is the betrayal of someone close to me. It causes me sadness and beyond from the deception. I regret to say that this is a situation of a personal nature that has crossed over to the political sphere and has been leveraged by dark character.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The poisoned Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny says he will return to Russia. Navalny also posted a picture with his family on Instagram for the first time since he was poisoned, announcing that he was breathing free of ventilation. He collapsed on a flight from Siberia on the 20th of August. Tests have shown he was poisoned with a Novichok nerve agent. He was transferred to the Sheriff Hospital in the German capital, Berlin. His team alleges he was poisoned on the orders of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin denies any involvement. The UK's House of Commons has passed a law giving Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government the power to override parts of the Brexit deal. The lawmakers backed the internal market bill by 340 votes to 263. Ministers say the bill protects Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK if negotiations on a future trade deal breaks down. The legislation has garnered a widespread criticism, and the opposition has blamed Johnson of having no regard for international law. However, the British Prime Minister said he ensures the UK could not be broken up by a foreign power. He accused the EU of acting in an extreme way.
I regret to have to tell the House that in recent months, the EU has suggested that it is willing to go to extreme and unreasonable lengths, using the Northern Ireland Protocol in a way that goes well beyond common sense, simply to exert leverage against the UK in our negotiations for a free trade agreement.
Boris Johnson said the UK must reserve the right to override the Brexit deal to protect the country's economic and political integrity. Now, moving on, 5 people have been arrested over a fire that razed the Moria refugee camp in Greece. Citizen Protection Minister Michalis said authorities were searching for one more person accused of setting the camp on fire. Germany says it's ready to take 1,500 migrants who fled Greece's largest migrant camp when it was gutted by fire last week. Close to 13,000 people have been living in squalor in the overcrowded Moria camp on Lesbos. Families have been sleeping in fields and on roads after fleeing the blaze as authorities struggle to find them accommodation. At least 2 dozens of migrants have drowned after their Europe-bound boat capsized in the Mediterranean Sea off the Libyan coast. A spokesperson for the UN Migration Agency said bodies of 2 migrants have been retrieved, while 22 missing people have been presumed dead. Talking to media, Safa Messehli said 45 people, mostly from Egypt and Morocco, have been rescued. Messehli said this new tragedy signals yet again the need for increased search and rescue capacity in the Mediterranean. The shipwreck was the latest maritime disaster involving migrants seeking a better life in Europe. In August, a boat carrying dozens of migrants capsized, leaving at least 45 people dead. Number of COVID-19 cases in India has surpassed 4.9 million after a spike of nearly 84,000 new infections in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has infected more than 29 million people and claimed over 927,000 lives so far. What about the pandemic in this report?
The numbers of COVID-19 keep fluctuating in Asia, where some countries have contained the virus efficiently, while others continue to struggle. The Indian Health Ministry said more than 1,000 people died overnight, raising the death toll to over 80,000. South Korea says it will secure early supply of vaccines from international organizations for 60% of its population. Over in China, authorities have locked down the southwestern city of Ruli after 2 Myanmar nationals were diagnosed with the virus.
Within 1 week after 2200 hours on Monday, no one should leave or enter the urban area of Ruili, unless in exceptional circumstances. All the residents in the urban area will stay home for quarantine. We will conduct nucleic acid tests on all the residents in the urban area, with the government taking all the cost.
According to the World Health Organization, America remained the most affected, with over 4.8 million active cases and more than 511,000 deaths. The UN chief says only a unified effort can help defeat the pandemic.
I do believe that multilateralism will prevail and that nationalism, populism that is spreading will in the end fail. And by the way, if you look at COVID, it is clear that populist and nationalistic approaches have basically failed where they were attempted.
Meanwhile, the efforts for coronavirus vaccine continue, with a few in their final trials. UK researchers say they are set to begin trials of inhaled vaccines, as delivering doses directly to the lungs might give a better immune response. The United Arab Emirates has given emergency permission for the use of a vaccine in frontline workers. Stage 3 trials of the Chinese-made vaccine began in the UAE in July and are not yet complete.
In Pakistan, 6 people have died from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. The health ministry says the country's death toll has reached 6,389. The ministry said 404 people tested positive for the virus overnight. It said there are 5,774 active infections, while the total confirmed cases have crossed 302,000 mark. The ministry said over 290,000 people have recovered so far. Meanwhile, a phase-wise opening of the education institutions has begun in Pakistan today. The National Command and Operations Center says a special monitoring mechanism has been devised to ensure implementation of the protocols. British Airways says it will start flying directly from Pakistan's second biggest city of Lahore to London 4 days a week from the 14th of October. In a statement, British High Commissioner to Pakistan, Christian Turner, said that flights to Lahore is a sign of confidence in Pakistan. He said it will open up more opportunities for business, people-to-people ties and tourism between the two countries. The airline resumed flights to Pakistan after more than a decade earlier this year. Afghanistan has secured a seat at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women for the first time in its history. The South Asian country received 39 out of 54 votes to find a place at the prestigious body. The term will last from 2021 until 2025. The Commission is dedicated to the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of women globally. This comes at a time when the Taliban and the Afghan government negotiators are engaged in a long-awaited peace talk in Doha. The negotiations are aimed at ending the decades-long war in the country. A group of researchers has detected a potential sign of aerial life within Venus's atmosphere. The finding could be a major scientific breakthrough in search for extraterrestrial life. Venus's harsh surface is inhospitable to life with temperatures exceeding 880 degrees Fahrenheit. But the group of international scientists said 2 telescopes in Hawaii and Chile found signs of phosphine in the Venusian clouds. The toxic gas is found on Earth only if it is manufactured or if it is produced by living organisms. Venus's clouds were thought to be able to tolerate microbial life so long as it could exist in the highly acidic environment. Global warming resulting from abrupt climate change due to emissions continues to worry scientists. In yet another unnerving revelation, they say the vast and ancient ice sheet sitting atop Greenland shed a 113 square kilometer chunk of ice within last month. Details in this report.
The section of the Spalt Glacier at the northwest corner of the Arctic island had been cracking for several years. On the 27th of August, it finally broke free, clearing the way for inland ice loss to the sea. The Greenpeace ship has come to the very edge of the Arctic to document and protect that is hidden under the surface. Researchers say they want to make sure world leaders understand the urgency and the role of healthy oceans in tackling the climate crisis.
The new research is yet another important piece of evidence showing that it's really time we stop hitting the snooze button and wake up to the climate emergency. We need to curb climate emissions right now, immediately, and we need to create a network of ocean sanctuaries covering at least a third of the blue planet if we are to take climate crisis seriously.
The Arctic has warmed more than twice as fast as the rest of the world over the last 4 decades. Scientists say all 3 variables, sea ice, temperatures, and rainfall, are now being measured well beyond the range of past observations. That makes the future of the Arctic more of a mystery. From the deck of the ship, pilot Paul Gruszewski muses over how quickly the region is changing since he began navigating between icebergs in 1996.
Well, not so long ago, I heard that we had 100 years before all the glaciers would be melting and the Arctic would be ice-free in the summer. Then I heard 75 years, 50 years, and recently I heard 15 years, 1-5. So it's accelerating. I'm not a scientist, but I listen to what the scientists say.
Sea ice coverage are now about 31%, lower than in the decade after 1979 when satellite observations began. This vanishing of sea ice also contributes to the region's warming. The icy white expanse is replaced by patches of dark water that absorbs solar radiation rather than reflecting it back out of the atmosphere.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned.